Hey gang, it's KR, King of D&D Homebrew, with part 2 of my series on being a player using the Fantasy Grounds virtual tabletop. You know, and this started, I have played on Fantasy Ground for many years. I really like the system. I really like the community. I like the support they give and whatnot. I think they're making a real push, lowering their price, doing all these great things. And I want to start run a campaign, a homebrewed campaign in it. And part of my thought process was I could put together a little tutorial that I could actually show my players. For many years, I taught engineering software, CAD/CAM. And one of the things I stressed, people would come in, they'd buy this very expensive software, and they needed to be there a week and go home and start making parts. Very complicated, aerospace, injection molds, all this kind of stuff. So I developed a teaching thing about learn the bits of the software you need to know to get parts going. You know, the day you get back. And then slowly but surely you can pick up on all the bells and whistles and whatnot. That's the approach I take in this series with Fantasy Grounds. I showed you, use the character wizard. Here's how you generate a character. Now I'm going to show you, here's what the screen that appears. Here's what each feature does. This is what you need. This is what you don't need. Here's the character sheet, the same thing. Here's what you're going to be using, and here's what you're not. And then finally, the combat tracker with the maps to see your token, to see where you are in a battle situation. Again, what do you need to know to keep things moving? That's my strategy. And another thing that I would say, if you're in a game, and I talked about on that first video, getting on the forums and finding a game, registering with Fantasy Grounds. If you're in a game, ask the GM, hey, could you put the game up an hour early sometime or sometime during the week? Or leave it up an hour after we stop playing so that I can get on there and play with the different features of my character sheet, the screen, all the things, you know, I want to learn about. Maybe I've looked online and I've seen some shortcuts or some things, and just see if they'll let you do that, because that, you know, the more you play with the software, the more you're going to learn. And because I'm talking about if you got a demo version, which is what I recommend when you start as a player, it's free. You can get on anybody's game. Almost all the GMs have ultimate licenses, so you can get on. But it's really great to get on what you're playing, with the books that you're playing, which you don't get with the demo version. And the other thing is on that forum, just ask questions and look for answers, because I've gotten on there and asked questions before and gotten an answer very quickly, and from the big shots, right? You know, the major players in this world that are developing this software, they'll answer your question. Now, I did customer service years ago when I did the CAD/CAM software, and I know how tough it is, because then you start asking questions. Well, what does it look like on your screen? What exactly is going on? And so you've got to be prepared. You're going to ask a question and not make it clear or whatever, but they'll ask you. And they'll get to the nub of it. And one more thing that was really lucky is they just had an update yesterday as I'm shooting this, and they really created this new look for the screen that I really like. And you'll see that when I go over the combat tracker and the maps, because that's the last one I'm basically doing that today. You know, I had thought about doing a series of these, do the screen, then do the character sheet, then do the combat tracker with maps, but part of this is I'm releasing this, not my usual Saturday release. I'm doing this midweek. I'm doing them all at once. And part of this is just, you know, my weekly viewers aren't necessarily wanting to see something on Fantasy Grounds. I want to keep my how to create a homebrewed campaigns thing going. So I'm just releasing this as one thing, you know, one big video, put it in a playlist, and then be able to use that, anybody out there that's interested, or people that might want to play in my game. All right, I'm going to start again with the icon here. Maybe not do this in all these videos, but just to remind you, start. This icon is a little lonely out here because I got two screens and you migrated this over. But basically, you just double click this and it comes up with this quick start guide, this main menu. Again, always go down here and check for updates. You always want to do this because Fantasy Grounds, to their credit, is constantly upgrading the software. And if there's something else, a new version the GM has upgraded and you try to come in, you won't be able to. You'll have to go on and you just have to upgrade. I just do it every time. And then I'm going to join a campaign. Now, I've already did this to create the character when I did that in the first video, so I know about D&D Homebrew. It remembers the password unless the GM is changing the password, which usually they don't anymore. So you just join. And this is so great, by the way, this cloud game, because we used to do port forwarding and stuff when I first started playing on the LAM LAN network. And it's just a lot harder to set up stuff. This cloud stuff is great. So you just hit start. As it's coming up, they'll have these little tips to use. It's kind of cool. You can see stuff because, again, there's so much in-depth little tips and tricks and different things that you can do in Fantasy Grounds. It goes on and on. Again, my goal is I'm always just trying, what do I need to play efficiently? And then as I, especially as I said, if your GM allows you, sets up the game, gets it up and running an hour before the time or sometime during the week, then you can play with all this stuff and look at all the features. But again, for this series, I'm just trying to get you up and running as quickly as possible. All right, so we always see this campaign setup. Just click the X here to get rid of that. Notice here's the character that I created. I'm in the system. That's what's up here in the left. I haven't yet claimed my character. I double-click that. Now that's gone, and I'm up here. Here is my character sheet. I'm going to do this character sheet in detail next time, but as I said, I want to talk about the screen. And the thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the resolution of the screen for purposes of this video so we can see it better. But I would recommend you have the resolution as low as you can that you be able to see it, because as we'll see, let's say the character sheet, and I got the combat tracker over here, and I might have a map. Notice the screen area is very valuable. And so you want to have this because you're going to have different menus up. Again, you can just, I don't want to see that. Well, then I hit it again and it comes right back up. I don't want to see that character sheet. I hit my character and it comes right back up. So you can bring those up pretty quickly. But again, you want to have this, if you want to have a lot, which I tend to like that, you want to have that resolution low. To do that, I'm going to come down here in the chat, scale, UI, and I'm going to say 145. Just a little bit bigger, again, just so that we can see this better. I'm going to start up here in the right corner. What you're going to see with the screen here is you have this functionality. You have something like this. This is who's playing, and you see these all the way across. But your character is the one that you can control. You can also have this switch to combat. Anything that's in the combat, you can have them all the way across the top. I never use this. It's not that useful. I can just look at the combat tracker, but if that's what you want. You can also, this locked, whenever you see a padlock, if you unlock it, now I can move this around to wherever I want. I always leave it to the default position. I don't need to look at this, except, again, the second thing about the screen is whenever you have some feature in the screen, let's say the center of the screen, if you right-click, you can exit, okay, just by right-clicking. That's the one thing. If you go up here and right-click, you can unlock it, as we just did. You can also go AFK away from your keyboard if you want. I never do this. I just can go down the text box and say, be right back. This is to set the color of your active color display. You can have this whatever to show you're there, however you want to do that. Again, it's not that critical. And then the final thing is to release this back to the GM's control. And if you do that, your I'm not in control box reappears. I suppose if you've got multiple characters or something that you're going to do that. So I go to my character sheet, double click that, now I'm back in. So again, always thinking about, though, that right-click feature. Down here, we have the chat window. The chat window and the combat tracker are the two, I'm not going to say most important windows because obviously your character sheet is your most important. But in terms of interacting with the game and interacting with the GM and the players, these are the two that you will really use all the time. And I'm going to go into the combat tracker in more detail when I discuss combat. But this, whenever you make a roll, so let's just say that within my skill set, I'm going to make a athletics check. And there's a couple ways to do that. One is to go here with this little hand and grab that dice and drag it there in the chat box. Okay, and it shows me I have skill, which is athletics. I'm proficient, right? And I also get a bonus for my strength, so I get a 21. That showed me the results of the roll. You can also double-click it in there, like that. Notice, too, this chat box, in order to roll stuff, if I take this and go like that, nothing happens. Okay? If I take it and bounce it all around, and even though it's going to end up, nothing happens. I want to have it in. I see it's in the chat box, then I let go. Or, as I always do, I just double-click because it goes in there automatically. That is telling you things about what is happening. This happens all the time. If I strike something and I double click, okay, it goes in the chat box and it tells me I just did an attack with my battle axe. So this chat box, all the results of things show up there. And you can look at that and say, wait a minute, how come I have, as we'll see, like a condition. Why am I getting disadvantaged? Well, because you're frightened on the oh, that's right. And it'll show you that in the chat box. You can also communicate. You can say things as we're playing. Everyone sees that. As we'll see, I can whisper things to the GM that'll appear here. I can speak whatever languages my character knows. I know Dwarvish. Okay. This is what appears to anyone who can speak Dwarvish. This is what appears to anyone else, or what they're hearing. So you're saying, I'm saying this to a fellow dwarf in front of these NPCs. They're not going to be able to hear it. And then the GM knows that as well. So you're simulating secret conversations, right? You're saying, this is my ability to do that. All of this in the chat box. And as we'll see, there's many more instances where this chat box comes into play. When you right-click the chat box, you can copy text to clipboard, text that appears here, because the GM can include things in here, stories or notes or whatever. I'll get to that when I talk about being a GM. And then you can copy them in a clipboard and then, paste them in a note or something else, some other information that you want. This is to unlock the position so that you can put this, as always, anywhere. This is the default position. This is just what I'm used to, but you can move it anywhere you want. Another thing that you will notice here is, depending on where you right-click this, if I click this down here, I get the thing that I had before, copy text to clipboard or whatever. If I come up here where I've got a result, stuff starts to come in where I can change that. So if I ×2, that result has been increased. If I say half there, it comes and goes in half instead of ×2. Okay, 13.5 is 6. So you have these abilities. Again, I come down here, it's not there. I come up here, I've got all these different abilities. I can reset that to its original role. I actually changed this one. I'll just reset that, right? And then I can just do different things, display the sum on there. I like to have that sum always on there, so that reset takes it off. So just another thing, right-clicking on this menu. So I'm going to go down here counterclockwise, continuing. These are modifiers that you can add to a roll. You can see that they have +2 and +5. If I add +2 and I make a roll, my attack, all right, I got that +2, plus I already have a +5, so that's a +7. And the same thing here. Right, added 5. You can do disadvantage. Now I get 2 dice, pick the highest. Same thing with disadvantage. And then I can add any modifier that I want, 6. And I do that. And it added that 6 on there. And notice too, in 5e, if you get a 1, that's an automatic miss, my friends. Tells you in the chat box. All right, continuing down here, we have our dice. I'm going to go more into the dice, changing the appearance and whatnot when we get into the other menu. Suffice to say, here you can just grab a die. If you put it in the chat box, it'll roll that die. Again, it's for no reason. You're just rolling it. Maybe the GM just said roll a die. You don't know. Although we'll see if it's a check. It'll be in a secret box. If you right-click, you can roll 4 of whatever dice you've chosen. Okay. Again, I just go over the 4-sider. I say, give me 10 4-siders. It'll roll them. Here's the percentage dice. It automatically takes 2 and rolls percentage. Down below here, we have one of the most powerful features of Fantasy Grounds, which are the hotkeys. These hotkeys, you can place commands, information, all sorts of stuff you can put in here and have ready at your access without searching through both your character, character sheet or your profile. And also, when you get into getting story entries or whatever from the GM, you don't have to be constantly looking through. You have them right here. What you do is, so I like to keep the first one kind of let's say my attacks. So I come up here to the +5. I come down here and I drag it on here and I let it go, and there it is. I like the fact that when I go over this like this, it tells me exactly what this is. But if you right-click this, you can edit that name and make it something else. Battle Axe. If you want. Okay? When you go over that, though, and it highlights it, right, so it still just is the Battle Axe attack. And it shows you up here in your chat box exactly what it is in terms of the command structure of Fantasy Grounds. Some people like this. I tend to not like that, but you can do what you want. And you got damage. There's that. So I just roll that. So I've got, let's say you just want Battle Axe. Now you've got two-handed Battle Axe. So if I say I want two hands, which changes the damage here, it doesn't change this, but it changes the damage. I put that there. Notice it tells me Battle Axe two-hand, Battle Axe just one. So that's, you know, I like the fact that you just go over these and it tells you what they are. So I tend to, and again, if you want to get rid of that, you go like that, go back up here. Oops. Now it just tells me that's my Battle Axe. If I hit Control, I've got a whole wide swath. Let's say I just want to do skills here for these. So I can just grab these, drag them in, right, and just put each skill in there and go right across like this. Let's say Alt. I want to do, for some reason, my abilities here. So I grab this, I bring it over. Now, anytime I hit that, it brings up my military rank and everything. Again, all sorts of stuff. You really, as you get used to this, you'll get it all organized the way you like it. It will speed up your experience. And it will save so much on real estate of the screen, but also just, you know, not having to have all those menus up and everything. And again, like I said, I like the commands, but you could put more detailed information in there if you find that you're looking at something and you can't tell what it is for some reason. But again, very powerful tool. And anytime you want, you just go like this, right-click it, and you can take that out and swap it for something else. Use the hotkeys, my friends. And I almost forgot to mention that there are 96 possible hotkeys because as we look here, this is the basic one. We hit Control, we hit Alt, but then also Control-Alt, Control-Shift, Shift-Alt, and then Shift-Alt-Control. 8 different combinations, 12 hotkeys on each. Nice. I am going to continue counterclockwise to the dice tower. This is where if you need to make a secret roll. So let's just say deception check. Why Krokus would be trying this, I'm not sure, but you put it in here. You don't see this. It says right there, it indicates that this is a secret check. But in fact, I'm going to show you the GM screen for a second here. Krokus got rolled a 1. He has a 0. He did not deceive anyone, right? It's kind of humorous. This is, and also you can use this if you want to whisper to the GM. So you say, you know, what's up? And it says whisper. The GM hears this. Nobody else sees this. For whatever reason, you want to say something just to them. Again, and it shows you this, that, okay, this did go in a whisper, and you said that. And then, of course, as always, you can move this around if you like. I like it right here. This is where I keep it. But, you know, you can see what you prefer when you're running. All right, now, even though we were going counterclockwise, I'm just going to go to the top of this menu. As you can see, you can make this smaller right down to the icons themselves. I tend to have it like this, but, you know, because again, the screen space is so valuable in Fantasy Grounds, you may decide I'm going to make that smaller. So if we start up, as we already know, this is our combat tracker. Notice, too, this appeared here. If I move this over to where I want it, and then I get rid of it, when I hit it again, it appears wherever I left it. It's a nice little feature of Fantasy Grounds, because you get used to where you want things. You have them all arranged, and of course, now I got to move that guy. It always comes back to that spot, right? Wherever the last time you closed it, it'll come back to that, which is nice. Party sheet. There's only one person in the party right now, so it's just Krokus. It shows everybody sees this. This is the attributes. This is defenses or senses, right? This is the inventory of the party. So depending on if you want to have this public or private, I like it public because to see what everyone has, because you may say, hey, wait a minute, didn't you have that necklace of fireballs or something? And because it's in here and you can see this. The party has nothing right now because Krokus spent every dime. I wanted that armor. So calendar, do not worry about. This is set up by the GM to give you information on things that are happening. Here's our dice. As I said, you can do some more control on this. You can decide the dice, the size of the dice, you know, all the way up to here, right? If you go to this color menu, if you go to the basic default skin right here, you can change this color to anything you want. Say red, I'll say okay, but now I'm going to have to change this to what? How about, yeah, that color. All right. I tend to like to have it at 80%, and I kind of like it when it has this kind of stone color or whatever. But again, this is just your preference, whatever you want. You just play with these, right? These are modifiers to rolls. So this is important. An opportunity attack occurs outside of initiative, right? So a monster moves out of your reach, you get that opportunity attack. You click that, and now you can make an attack that is not in the combat tracker. And it says there, that's an opportunity attack. Again, always telling you in the chat box what is happening, which can be really useful in the middle of the game. Again, if you have cover, that adds, I think, -2, -4. And if this is a critical hit, this is a damage modifier. You go to that critical, you get the double. And again, max damage just means you roll, but it's always going to go to the whatever that. So I rolled a 4, but it's max damage, so it's an 8. And it shows you max, and it changes the color. Again, up here, look at this. This is the die color, but that's my critical, meaning it's doubled. It shows you that in green. The chat window is always giving you this information about what's happening. And that's half damage. Okay. Always good to keep this up. Here we have effects, and again, really useful. There's two things here. One is if you're carrying a torch or something and you have a character, Krokus wouldn't, he has dark vision. But if you have a character on a map, you put this torch on them. Okay, I've given a torch to Krokus. It shows up in the combat tracker under, these are effects. It shows me this anyway, but I can take it off as we'll see. Well, I don't need a torch. Right? So I wouldn't have one, but that shows you how easy it is. I always ask you twice to confirm delete. I no longer have that. But let's just say that I've been frightened. Okay, now I'm frightened. What does that do to me, the frightened effect? Well, let's look at some of what happens when you're frightened. I'm going to try to make an intimidation check, frightened. Okay, I have disadvantage because I'm frightened. And so it shows me that. And it dropped the high roll. I've got the low one. Okay, so it's all automated. It's all in there. And what will happen is you'll be like, wait a minute, why do I have disadvantage if you're not looking at this or you have it down? Oh, it's because you had that frightened effect. One of the things that you'll notice, whenever I click one of these windows, it comes to the front, right? Okay. But there is this nesting of windows. And, I go, oh, what does acrobatics do again? This is what that does. And then that's nested. I got to go here to close that. I go over here. I don't need this anymore. And sometimes here's that over here, all this stuff, right? That's on the screen. I am not going to sit here and defend the UI of Fantasy Grounds and tell you it's great. People say, oh, it looks like the early 2000s, which was when this software was created. And it does. It's not like maybe some slicker packages or a video game. My only defense to this is it's not a video game. It's a tool to help you play an RPG with your friends, with a group, talking to each other, making discussions. You can have images up. You're in a tavern and you're having this long social encounter. You just have that up there or not. You can have, sounds and everything. That's way advanced. We're not going to worry about that. But you're not going to compete with a video game or with other VTTs that are like video games. But to me, I like the fact, the automation, I'm used to it. It doesn't bother me. I just click through those screens. I like having different ones up that I can click on. But again, I'm not going to defend. That's the thing people talk about, that and the complexity, which I'm trying to show, even though this might seem overwhelming. It's, you can go through this slowly and go through each of these. I just think that it balances out because I'm not playing a video game. Baldur's Gate is a great game, but that's not what this is. That's my opinion. Options are really cool. There's a lot of control, but almost all of this is GM stuff. All you need to worry about are these. A ring when you make a whisper to tell the GM, hey, I just whispered something. Again, your active color, you can change that from here as well. Let's make that radically different. Now, if I look at my active color, it's up here. It's changed. What the combat list size is. Again, I would just leave this to 6. I always put this on. This restores the windows exactly as you left them your last session. I like that. I don't want manual dice entry. I basically have to do it twice. I don't like the target remove on miss. We'll see that in the combat tracker. I just leave that off. And then auto center, I have it on. Everything else here is GM related. You can't control these things. That's just for them clicking them right now. You can't control those. Don't worry about them. And then down in here, token lights, you can actually control these as to the color of them and stuff, right? Again, really great stuff. You don't have to worry about it. All this stuff. This is just leave this when you're playing with the system. All right, so now we're coming down our menu here. The library. These are the volumes that the GM has chosen for this game on here. And once you've got them all activated, if there's other ones that they want you to activate, you go to this activation menu, and these other ones comes up. But again, we're not using the Essentials rulebook, or we've got the books that we want. Assets, don't worry about that. That's something that the GM will provide that on their side, but you can add those if you want. But again, I'm just going with things you need to know. Now the books, if you want to look at the player's handbook at any time, you click that. I'm going to look at the combat section, and I want to see something about, actions in combat or whatever. And you can just look at these if you want in the book at any time. And I'm going to close that. Notes, this is kind of cool. If you want to keep a note, you just say like this. All right, here's your title. This is a note. Sample note. Okay. Once you've gone like this up here, it's locked. It can't be changed. If you want to share it with the group, you can share. Now it's a public note. Anyone can look at it. It's in everyone's note box and the GM's. If you want to keep that private, you go like that. And when you make a note, the GM always has access to them. So now we go out here, encounters. Don't worry about that. That's a GM situation they have there. Again, because the system is for both GMs and players. Images, you do have different images from the books. Let's say blinded. They have the condition blinded, whatever these images. The main ones are going to be maps. And I'm going to go into that when I go over the combat tracker, because that's when you're placed in a map. They'll either be in uncategorized, or the GM may make a folder that you'll see GM map. So we'll get to that. Items, this is very important. This is where you're going to pick up all your stuff that you want. Let's say I've got enough gold I've collected and I want to get a crossbow. I'm going to come down here to ranged weapons. Let's say a hand weapon. I'm going to bring up my inventory and I'm going to say, okay, give me that hand weapon. And I drag it in there. I go to my actions tab. Now I have that crossbow is in there automatically. Chance to hit has been adjusted by my dex and proficiency, and my damage by my dex. Now the thing is, I don't have the money to do that right now. I'm just dreaming of that, so I will just go and edit that, take it off. You always have to confirm a delete, which is nice when you do that. And again, everything is in there, and you can go by type, right? You can just go by, show me all the tools that are available. There's 2 pages of those, right? It's nice because you can really figure out what, adventuring gear, what do I want here? And as always, you need to have the cash, but you can drag and drop that and buy stuff. NPCs, this is for the GM. You can see these are the monsters that are in the player's handbook. But again, you don't want to be looking at these just like you don't want to look at a monster manual while you're playing. Fold down a little bit. Parcels are treasure parcels that the GM will hand you. You'll get those after an adventure, exploration of dungeon, whatever it is. Story. This is kind of interesting because this has, so if you want to go over here and let's say A, that is all the spells in the player's handbook that start with A. I'm going to go to Mordenkaim's. This is what they have in the Mordenkaim's book for players. This is, notice there's not a lot available in the Dungeon Master's Guide, right? Tables is kind of interesting. Again, when you go and you want to get a personality trait, again, I'll go to what my character was, which is a soldier. Let's see if I can find that quickly. Actually, if I look for, I'm going to look for Acolyte. Okay, and then I'll go back and look for soldier. Oh, I went back to where I was, soldier. Okay, so there I am. There's all the soldiers. So I want to do my flaw. Click that. 1. Soldier flaw. Monstrous enemy. There you go. Vehicles, these are things that are supplied by the GM, carts, boats, whatever it is. And then finally, the backgrounds, all the things for 5e. I go to the backgrounds tab, and here they are, the ones that are available. Now, I went through the character wizard, so I already used these, but they're all there if you want to go through that method or when you are adding things, right? Because when you go to Barbarian, and let's get my sheet up here. I'm not going to do this right now, but if I come over here and I've got the Barbarian from the player's handbook and I come over and drag that onto my level, I'll go up a level. Don't want to do that. I'll show you how you before you do that, you want to export your character. And in order to do that, you just click that. It'll ask you where you want to save it, and then you save it. Now your first level character is saved. Then you want to go, because once you go that level, you can't go back. You can re-enter it all. But man, you're 9th level or something and you haven't saved it all since first, and you just changed it, you got to go back in, and you don't want to do that. You always want to be saved. Some people save every session. They'll export a character. But the only time it comes up, I've never lost a character, never had a problem, but when you, before you level up, for sure, always export your character. And feats, the same thing. As you go up in levels and get new feats, right, you're going to look at these and decide what you want for your character. Right, once you've already done this, but this will show you which ones are available in this game if you want to go that method. But they'll come up on your screen when we went through the character wizard. Skills, this just gives you explanations of all these. What is a nature check? Sometimes you want to look at this and say, I want to see, it's a terrain, plants, animals, weather, natural, because I want to make a nature check, and I want to ask the GM, hey, can I check to see X or Y? Okay, you've always got that available. Spells. Now, spells are a big deal. A spellcaster, I may do a wizard character or something, or druid, I don't know. But because what you can do is you can see these by level, all the first level spells. And by the source, I'm going to say cleric. Here's all the first level cleric spells. Or I want to see my domain. The life domain, these are my 2 extra spells, right? Don't count against your preparation. You can see those immediately. So that's nice how it's filtered that way. So this time I've just come into Fantasy Grounds. You look at the first 2 videos I show clicking the icon, joining the game. You can review those. Once you've done it once, it's pretty obvious. Again, always update when you come in. And here we have, this is Krokus, and I just wanted to go over in depth this, the character sheet, all the, the various inputs and everything, just go over each of them. I used a bunch of the, action tabs and skill tabs and stuff in my demonstration to the screen to show you the chat box and whatnot. But I'm going to go into it in a little more detail. This is the item you'll probably be looking at the most, your character sheet, to think about what you're going to do or to make checks or or whatever. Okay, so we start up here at the top. This is my token that I've chosen. Anytime you want to change that, if you click it, it'll come up. This is your portrait, your token from the map when we get into a mapping situation. And if you wanted to change that, you can just go to this, any of these bags, which are basically the different, and pick another dwarf. These are 5e dwarves. And pick something else if you want. Okay. Here's the name, which you could edit at any time you want. Again, everyone gets used to you. I would not do that. Here's whether or not you have inspiration or not. This is you are the active PC right now. The one if you have multiple PCs or something, you can do that. Just your class and level, your proficiency, which in 5e is based on that level. You can come up like this. Anytime you see a magnifying glass, you can look closer at this, how much XP you have if you're doing that level up. Again, the level, the hit dice that you have, this kind of thing. Background is soldier. As I mentioned, anytime you want, you can look into this information. You can find these tabs on your traits. That's typically how, once I have this in with the character wizard, this is how I did generate this. I just went in to this tab, and I showed this before, and I just rolled this and got, this would be, I face problems head on. All that kind of stuff, your traits and flaws and bonds and that kind of thing, you can get right from there. All the information about your race as a mountain dwarf, everything is right here. You come down here, these abilities, these are your, if you're going to make a strength check, you double click that. Now, okay, one, my first one of the day. All of these have it. It shows you what the pluses are. Over here we have saves, same thing. Double click for that. There's a 2 save. Now I have these down here in the hotkeys. Important thing about the hotkeys. If you double click the hotkeys, I'm just going to move this combat tracker away for this purpose. If you double click that, you get 2. So you always want to just click it once, right? When you do this, if you just click it once, nothing happens. If you double click it, you get one. One of those little things that I don't know if that's something that I don't have set up correctly or whatever, but it's one of those things I've noticed over time, and I'm like, okay, if you're going to put it down in the hotkeys, you got to remember that, right? This shows you your armor class, your proficiency. This is where your initiative would be. If you double click, it'll roll that for you. And again, if I have one here, then I can do it from down with the hotkeys. Right up here is you have your passive perception, also senses. You can see dark vision. These 2 things, special moves, special defenses, is from an earlier thing. Don't worry about it. It doesn't matter. Down here, this is your hit points as you're wounded, and as we'll see when we do the combat tracker, it'll be reflected here. Also, if you add any temporary hit points, you cannot manipulate when you're in the combat tracker. Only the GM can take off wounds, but you can put these if you get a temporary hit points from some spell or something. This is where you put them in. Again, there's your hit dice. These are your death saves down here. You just keep track of these if you're in that situation. Here's the roll. Oops, and I double clicked that one. Some of these you just click. You got to play with that. There's 2 fails and a make. So you keep track of those this way. You keep track of those manually, but you don't want to get 3. Okay, so that's your front page. Your second page are your skills. And as I said, all of these are reflective of the things that you picked in the character wizard, those that you became proficient in, which gives you the +2. And then, of course, when you have like this with the strength, it automatically calculates the strength bonus for this check, for an athletics check. This is, again, when you do it here, double click, right? And whereas if they're in the hotkeys, remember, it's just 1 click. And as always with the red shield, you can always look at things and see what exactly they define as an acrobatics check. Usually familiar with 5e, familiar with Pathfinder, but sometimes if you're in a new system and you don't know exactly what it is, it's great to look at these. Abilities, this just tells you about your character that you've built. The rage feature. your unarmored defense as a barbarian, right? 10 plus your dex plus your con modifier. That's one of the things about being a barbarian. And all the proficiencies that you have and the languages that you know. Inventory. Now, one of the things that I did when I created this character is I just went through and I took the standard amount of gold that you get, and I forgot about the standard equipment pack that you get as a character in the book. So I had to spend all my cash to get, I wanted to get some armor. I would actually have more money than I had spent, because if you look at the book, you're going to get a weapon and if I go back to, if I come over here and look at classes. And I say barbarian in the player's handbook. And I look at this, and again, I'm going to expand this a little bit. And you come down here, and the starting equipment is a great axe, which is what I have. And I should have 2 hand axes or any simple weapon, explorer's pack, and 4 javelins. So I realized that, I screwed up. I should have had these things. I could add the gold and whatever, subtract what I spent on the great axe and the splint mail, whatever. So if I want to add those items, what I would do is I'd keep this open just so that I can see what's going on here. Go to the items, weapons. So any simple weapon, I'm gonna get 4 javelins, right? So I will say, like so. I'll just drag those over, and then I can just put 4. Now I've got those 4 javelins. Simple weapon, I can get 2 hand axes. I'll just take the 2 hand axes. So I go like that, and I change that to 2. When I go to I go like that to make stop editing. I go to my action tab. Now all those are in there. The hand axe both in my hand and thrown. A javelin as well I can use in my hand and throw. Everything is constantly updated when you add things to it. Notes, this is just all the stuff that I rolled up on my tables in the creating my characters here. I put this notes quartermaster. That was my rank, my military rank in as a soldier. This is for Adventure League. Do not worry about with the log. And then the action tab, which again is one of the major tabs that you're going to use. I've already pointed out on here. I'm going to get rid of these. As we'll see when I go into the maps and into combat itself, these are the ones you're going to be using to make your attacks. Rage here, as I pointed out, when you open this up and you have this effect, if you click this, well, I clicked this accidentally twice, and I will just take one of those off like so. I have the rage on me. And of course, I want to mark off that I have used rage. And as we'll see from the GM standpoint, when you're marking these off, the GM can see your chart, can see what you're doing as well. Not that they're checking up on you, but it's nice to have a backup. Hey, you used rage already. Make sure you mark that off because you only get those 2 per day. So I'm going to bring up this other character that I created, Willenor. This is an elven wizard, half-elf wizard. All these things are going to be the same. Obviously they're not the same entries or whatever. Her characteristics are different, her AC and whatnot. But the main difference here is in the action tab. She has a crossbow and dagger, typical wizard stuff, but she has spells, and they're all shown down here. Now with the spells, you have a prepared spellcaster here. So this is combat. This is what she's taken today as a prepared spellcaster. But this you can change. Here's the standard. Here's what she has available, right? These are the spells she did not take, okay? And then, of course, the cantrips just has. Then when you go to preparation, the beginning of the day, you can say, I'm going to take Thunder Wave today and not Grease because I've got 2 spell slots. So that's what I'm going to take today. When I go back to my combat, those are the ones that are there. And some people like to keep it like this, where it's always open. I can see I'm not going to put this on myself, apply to current targets, and we're going to see in a combat situation just how you do that. So I think what I'll do is have these two characters in this combat situation. Again, you'd have a party of people. You probably wouldn't run with two characters, but I'm just trying to show this for the example. So again, you have combat, these are the spells that you have just to look at, and then I'll just close that for now. And then we have preparation at the beginning of the day where I decide what I'm going to take. And obviously you're not going to have preparation with a character class like a sorcerer, right? They just have their spells, they show them, and then as you do them, you click them off, and once you do that, you're done for the day. And down here you're saying, oh, what's the arcane recovery? That's when after a short rest you can get half your level of expended spell slots. All right, so here we are, and as you can see, there's quite a difference here in the way this looks. This is this most recent update, just a couple days ago. I really like the way it looks. I think it's more modern, it's easier for me to read, and also I think that it gives evidence that changes are coming, right? So they first had the lowered price, stuff like this. I just think it's exciting to see Fantasy Grounds keep moving forward. All right, so let's get into this. Obviously, this is Krokus, the barbarian that I've had, going through this thing. So what I'm going to show you, the combat tracker I've got over here in this position that I always put it. Notice too, my various windows, my character sheet, everything came up where I typically keep them. And what's going to happen here is we're going to have an encounter. Now, a lot of Fantasy Grounds, if you look at some of the streams out there, oh, I can't think of what it was called, but I watched Bryce Mousseau's game for quite a while. He's like a Fantasy Grounds guru in terms of the maps and stuff he does. But a lot of the action is, you just see a map of the area and the players are talking to the GM and telling them what they're doing, this and that, just like you are at a tabletop, right? Just like, it isn't all just technology. It isn't a video game. It's still a role-playing RPG. But then when you have an encounter, you go into the mode of having a map. And I think this is a tremendous advantage as someone who enjoys the tactical side of role-playing games. So what's going to happen is, just as an example, I'm going to say that the players have come across these stairs going down, ending in this door. The players, there's only one player. As I said, I did this with multiple players. It just looked like a mess, even though I knew what I was doing. And you're not going to do that. You're only going to run your character. So just bear with me. I'm just doing Krokus the Barbarian. So he has stumbled across these stairs going down. And I say, the GM says it ends at a doorway. Okay. Now we're going to go into our map mode. Couple ways you do this. One is if you go to images. Okay, here you've got all images. If you go, they've created a campaign map, Fantasy Grounds example. And there I am, Krokus at the end of this stair. And again, I can't see anything else. And there's a door there. It's double doors. So I'm ready to enter. One thing I should put myself here, if you hit Control and do your middle mouse, the roller, it'll make your counter smaller or bigger. I like to have it within the sight. And then if I roll up and down with my roller, I get close or whatever. I like to just have it the size of whatever the square is that I'm on as a player. Now, let's say you've closed the map, and let's say you had 100 of these on this screen. You can't remember which one it is. What you can do is simply go to the combat tracker, double-click, and it comes right up, whatever you happen to be in. And again, once you start getting into a campaign and you're in session 12 or 15 or whatever, and you've seen a million maps, it's a really handy feature. All right, so let's look at some of these. This is zoomed to fit. Now, in this case, I can see that's big. That's a big dungeon, right? In fact, here is the GM side of this map. If I unlock that and turn off line of sight and everything, unlock that again. What you see here is there's the map that I've created. So it even though it seems like it should be that big, it's just the edges of what I made in Dungeon Draft is that big. But in fact, it's kind of a cool thing because your players don't know. All right, so we're going to go back in here. And we're going to go look. That was the first one we had, which is zoom to fit. These two features I would not worry about too much. This is camera mode, where you can sort of see like so, or this mode. Again, I never use these. I think they're sort of features that are not really developed yet. So I don't use them. I wouldn't worry about them. This ping mode is really cool because if you click that and you go over and you say, what is over here again? It shows the ping. And everybody sees it, the GM and all the other players. Like you're looking and is it right there? Is that where the secret door is? Okay. It's kind of a cool feature. These features, selection and target and everything, when we get into a battle situation, you're going to have combat, we're going to use those. This right here is shortcut view. If the GM has placed a shortcut here, information, I'm just going to go to my, let's see, I've got this note here on the GM screen, and I will, on the Fantasy Grounds map here, right, I will set that. I'll set it right here. And then I will make it like so, shareable. Go back here, and now you as a player see this, and you click that, and it shows you this note. This is a test. So that's basically what that, if you turn that off, it goes away. Okay? And then this right here is toggle navigation panel where you can move it up or down like so. I tend to not use this. I just use my my mouse. I can also, if I put the press down on the roller pin, I can just move this around like that. You'll get really good at this as you go along. Just having enough space here for what you need. If we look at our real estate here on this, as you can see, I can take this down this corner and I can go like this. Trying to make this. This is a reason that sometimes people will have it like this once they get used to knowing where the icons are, right? As I mentioned, I've got a lot of stuff down here in the hotkeys for my characters that I don't necessarily go, but I usually like to keep, I just like to look at my character sheet. It's just the way I am. So again, you got to have this in a situation. You can always go back and forth like that. All right, so now you've come to these two doors. GM typical style says, you come to this door, what are you going to do? If there was a rogue in the party or something like that, or somebody that could investigate, look for traps or whatever. But in this case, we only have one person. Krokus decides to open the door. We just click that with our left mouse button. We go like this, and the Krokus can see with his dark vision this area. Notice these are pillars that are blocking line of sight. He also can't see around that corner there. He has to decide what he's going to do. Krokus says, I'm going to move into the room. Okay, how far? Again, left click, and you go like this. Now, this is saying, how far do you want to go? And maybe Krokus only wants to go in 15 feet to see around these pillars what's going on to save some movement. He's got 25. So he goes like that. The GM says, okay, like so. Now, if you turn that off, that lock, the GM does, you can just move, okay, however you want. But, some people hate some GMs hate to have those locked because they're constantly having to say yes, yes, yes. Others do it very seamlessly. That's up to you. When Krokus gets to here, he sees a creature. It appears on the combat tracker immediately. It's an unidentified creature at this stage. When the GM described it, it's a skeletal humanoid covered in rags with a, beat up sword. Metagamey, of course, a skeleton, but it's a first level character, may have never seen this or even heard of them. So, but we're in a situation now where we're going to roll initiative. So I have this down here in my hotkey. Krokus, you just click that. 7, he's got a +2 for his dex. Now the creature will roll, and it gets a 17. The skeleton moves first. And I'm just going to zoom up a little with my middle mouse button so I can see this. And the skeleton is going to engage. And if this creature were identified, if I change this from the GM and we see that it is indeed a skeleton, what you know about healthy, what you see up here is it's hostile to you. Red is hostile. I could change this to friendly, neutral, or hostile. I'd say the skeleton is hostile, is undead. So it's going to make an attack. When I do an attack from my end, you just see a blank dice there, but it misses. It shows you that afterwards. So Krokus is missed. And that's all the actions. It's not going to move anymore. It has more movement, but it's not going to do anything. So then we're going to go to Krokus's turn. The first thing that Krokus will do is he's going to rage. I have one marked off, but there, a rage. And I'm just going to open that up. Notice these gears have changed. It used to be a magnifying glass. And I'm going to apply to myself by hitting that. Boom. Now I'm raging. We look up here. I have this advantage on strength, advantage saves, and I do 2 to melee. Resist bludgeoning. That's gonna resist damage right from the skeleton. That is a bonus action to rage. So now I have my regular action. All right, I got to decide. The first thing I got to do is decide I'm going to attack the skeleton. A couple ways to do this. Back over to our map here, we have selection mode, target enemy units. That's all enemy units. Target friendly units, like if you're throwing a spell or something, and then clear targets. If I say target mode and I select, we go over here, look on my combat tracker, it says I target the skeleton. The selection mode is for things like moving a whole group of tokens or whatever. But when you go to this target mode, if you see this box, like I just selected that by clicking with the left mouse. If I make a circle or a square, now it's got both Krokus and the skeleton. I don't want to do that. So I can clear all targets and start again. Or if I hit Control and click, Krokus goes away. And this is the thing about when you've selected yourself to do something, heal yourself, you're a cleric or something. Then you go into a battle situation and you've forgotten to do that and you select the skeleton and you forget you've still selected. Sometimes you'll hit, hit myself, whatever. So you got to be conscious of always looking, just like the chat box gives you information on what's going on, the combat tracker does as well. So I've selected the skeleton as my target. I go to my character sheet. I can either attack from the character sheet, or I have this down here with my battle axe. I'm using 2 hands. So we go here, we strike, and I hit the skeleton. Shows me that in my the chat box. So now I'm going to do damage. I have 2-handed damage. Right there is the 2-handed. I'm going to move this over a little bit. This is where our real estate starts to get, difficult to deal with. If I can unlock this and move this down a little bit. Maybe I'll just do that. Move this down. And then lock it again. And then I'm going to move this over like this, just so I can see a little bit more here of this. Okay, so I did 1, but I'm adding 5, right? Because I have 3 for my strength and 2 for my my rage, right? I'm so infuriated. It's not dead yet. I still technically had some moves left for my first move, but which perhaps to get around for flanking, to get advantage if you're using the optional flanking rules. I'm going to go to the skeleton's turn, and it's going to strike again at another miss. Boy, this guy's rolling like crap. Okay, so we go again to Krokus's turn. He's going to strike again. I can either attack from here, or I can drag this over like so. That's a miss. This is turning into quite a little battle here. Back to the skeleton. The skeleton this is kind of worthless battle, but hits him again. We got our 2-handed. Damage exceeds hit points. Its status dying at 0. Of course, these don't get death saves. It's gone. And there you go. Now I can continue to explore this room. So there you have it, giving you what you need to be a player in a fantasy ground, RPG game, whichever one you choose. I have used 5e, most popular game, but all of them kind of follow this same framework. And as I say, try to practice this if you can. And the other thing is, get on the forums, find a game system you're interested in, say, hey, I'm interested, let's talk about it. And thanks again to all my Patreon supporters. You guys help me keep creating content for this channel. Really, really appreciate your support. And of course, I have nothing to do with Fantasy Grounds. They don't know me. I'm just doing this for my own reasons. But as I told someone recently who asked me about VTTs, I said, I don't always use a virtual tabletop when I play an RPG game. But when I do, I prefer Fantasy Grounds.